I will introduce myself. I am Jim Gustafson, professor of psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin Medical School, giving my 32nd of 36 lectures. Today's lecture is called The Dangers of Conventionality Compared to My Unconventional Practice. Favorably, of course, in my favor. I begin with what my unconventional business in psychiatry is about. It has an economy, quite like that of Thoreau. For example, the 10-minute very brief psychotherapy as an interlude in a conventional medication check, which you guys do all the time. I glimpsed this patient as I came into the resident's office. She was sitting sideways to me, like that, on the edge of a couch, like a bird ready to fly. Already I know quite a bit what's going on. The resident said she had bipolar disorder, as if I didn't know, right? What do bipolar patients do and fly, right? And that she wanted to take lithium to quell her anger. You guys have heard this one before, especially at her boyfriend. The resident preferred to give her a different mood stabilizer, lamotrigine, being less toxic than lithium. I asked the patient if I might ask her a question. It's one of my favorite things to say to people. It sounds so innocent. They could hardly refuse. And she smiled at me and said I asked her for an example of her anger. She replied that 2 weeks ago her boyfriend told her he was going to a strip show. She resented it but said nothing at the time. This morning, she exploded at him, telling him he had no respect for her and that he full well knew that she did not want him to go to strip shows. At this point, she felt she did not want to be a controlling bitch, in quotation marks. She proposed a compromise that he should ask her when he wanted to do such things. He replied that men would be men, disregarding her proposal. Now her body joined the conversation and she trembled. I noted it and asked her what was making her afraid. She replied, he might leave her. Coming close to the end of this 5-minute interlude in the medication check, I simply noted her holding her own, proposing a compromise, a second line of sight from where we began, and it did risk his leaving her. On the other hand, capitulating to his doing whatever he pleased, whenever he pleased, the first line of sight in our conversation would build up her anger at being disrespected, and she would explode again. Finally, it was possible that holding her ground might get him to reconsider his presumption that he can do whatever he pleases and she has to put up with it. She thanked me and so did the resident, and so I departed as they discussed the schedule for taking Lamictal. End of interlude. Next part, my business in reading dreams. This is a dream of my own. Here we go into another departure into my unconventional business, as Thoreau would say, heading for his cabin at Walden. One of my favorite things to do. I'm certainly indebted to Freud for his method of establishing the context for each detail in a dream, as Jung was indebted to Freud, and I certainly am indebted to Jung for his night portraits of the whole situation of forces, and for his clarity about will, isolated will, bringing about catastrophes, disregarding the whole picture. But I go farther, standing on their shoulders, and now I'm about to show you what I think that I do farther. And I do it with the residents and their patients in 20 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes 10 minutes. But I'll give you a dream of my own, which bears on the problem of conventionality. This is the tragedy of a young man that I knew when I was a tennis teacher in college. He was one of my students. And he was a very fortunate and handsome, and had everything was on his side. And he ended up shooting himself. Now, so my dream went back to this because it pertains to the present. because conventional doctors often miss terrible things happening to conventional people. We'll come back to why. So here's the dream. And don't go to the, well, should we go to the whiteboard? Yeah, let's go to the whiteboard. And the dream is on the left-hand side. It has an upper part, Scully Square in Boston, and it has a lower part of a soccer field. Now, I am playing on a soccer field on the bottom part, the lower compartment. And I'm applying a series of compressions. You see the heavy green lines pressing the ball to go in a different direction, changing its trajectory. And so it moves deeper each time, and then I score a goal. It's about me redistributing the force of the ball in successive moves. The next part occurred in Scully Square in Boston, and I'm riding that bicycle over a dark, wet, greasy, and treacherous pavement, riding against those 4 red lines of traffic, right, coming right at me, okay? And I barely make it. And then the next thing I know, I'm on one knee. You see that guy in blue there looking? I'm on one knee, low to the ground, sighting the treacherous forces in this corridor of Scully Square. You imagine it? All right. Now, why do I say, Ed, you can keep it there for a minute. What do I say and claim that my lines of why go beyond those of Freud and Jung? I say and claim this because of my theoretical clarity of my musical score. In other words, if you look at any time I work with a dream, it ends up in 2 compartments. The upper compartment there is a dangerous corridor of power where people get killed because they get in the line of forces that they have no business being in. And then the other compartment is an inner transitional field in which, like a soccer playing field, in which one can move freely, and you see how much more flexibility there is in that position. I mean, continuous transition. All right, Ed, you can come back from the whiteboard. So this is why I have my watch. In the lower and transitional and unconscious compartment we looked at, you see my ability by compression to redistribute the force of the ball as I do on the tennis court continuously, and as I do everywhere else. As Fenelon has said so beautifully, everything in nature moves fluidly like this to redistribute force. As lightning from a cloud to earth, it redistributes force. In the upper and outer and conscious compartment, you see me enacting a tragedy, which I will now explain to you, that actually happened to one of my tennis pupils, as I said. He was a gifted tennis player at a famous university, and he was one of my best students as a tennis player. And he went to Boston, and he took one of those, after this prestigious undergraduate degree, he went to Boston and worked in one of those terrible jobs in investment banking that begins at 5 or 6 in the morning and runs till 1 or 2 at night. Now, my pupil, who was moved so beautifully on a playing field like a tennis court, got himself on a treacherous corridor of power in Boston, and he got run over by a truck. I could cry. Had to have a leg amputated and shot himself. Gone, like Quinamid in the opening lines of Loeb's Homer in Cold Calls I told about a few weeks ago. A corridor or strip of power distributed him to pieces, and instead of him distributing the ball in this beautiful way, he could do it. He became the object of a force. Hierarchies like investment banking distribute force, as Fenelon argued, and as Christopher Loeb's Homer argues in Cold Calls, by transmitting orders, often at the cost and expense of their own lives. So I'm down on one knee, low to the ground, in a long, long sight of 3,000 years here. The history of transition from the cold engine to the hot engine by Levi-Strauss is with us at every moment. It awaits us at every intersection. You can get yourself killed at any intersection. Just go to one intersection and get it wrong. Cold engine societies that we were in for 2 million years, the Aboriginal humanity, never built up surpluses, so almost everyone could take his time. There was nothing much to take over. But hot engine societies, such as we're in for the last 5,000 years, have tremendous temperature differentials between the elites and the ordinary people, so that young and ambitious people get racing ahead to be among the favored. Who would have thought that this promising young man would end up shooting himself? An unknown to be sure, but really an unknown that never crossed the minds of us, his teachers. On the other hand, when you get down on one knee in Scully Square and look at dark, wet, greasy, and treacherous pavement in heavy traffic, you sight also how young ambition can go too far. Ready for the conclusion? Why the surface of conventional psychiatry runs on as usual and few take up my unconventional practice, the second dream of the author. I have to see the enormous crowd that I have here. I have 5 to 10 minute deep conversations in conventional medication checks all day long. That's what I do. Everyone else is just going in there pretty much and getting the medicine. As one of the residents said to me, they take the air out of the place, but I try to put it back in. And I have 15 to 20, 30 minute dream descents like the one I just gave you into my own dream, to read tragedy and see whether we can do something about it. Little changes I find, though, in the trajectory of the residents back to the enormous apparatus of medical psychiatry. So I had a dream about why this happens. And don't go to the whiteboard yet. No, let's go to the whiteboard. Look at the dream. You can look at the 2 images on the right as I discuss it. First one starts on the bottom. I'm on vacation with my family and a number of other families high on the bluffs above a beautiful sea, like in Door County where I teach every other summer. And we seem also to have a beautiful bright green boat. You see that? That's a dory. Dories have a high bow and a high stern. And so they plunge through the surf beautifully. And when they don't get swamped, they have high sides too. Unfortunately, no one but me seems willing to take care of this green boat. They leave it out lying at night on the marsh grass of the bluffs. I can do nothing about it, really. I would need someone else to help me carry it, and I would have to have a place to secure it. No way. All right, later I dream I'm moving our family out of a house which is rapidly filling up with people I don't know. This is the top part of the dream. My wife and children are asleep, so it's up to me to pack our Cadillac. I never knew I had a Cadillac. When they wake up and get in the car sleepily, I notice that our old Cadillac has 3 flat tires and that it will take us nowhere. You can come back now from the whiteboard and we'll finish the lecture here on time. We're back to comedy, right, in place of tragedy. I usually put tragedy in the middle so we can end up laughing, you see, by the end if you're not crying too hard. So this is my beautiful bright boat that comes out of this is my dream vehicle. This is the beautiful bright boat that comes out of the dark night sea to me every night. Except I receive it. I'm ready for it to arrive with what it. She brings me astonishing findings from what Poincaré called his sieve or net for selecting the right proof from millions of combinations. He's the founder of nonlinear geometry. He wrote an essay called Mathematical Creation. When he couldn't solve a problem, his dream would give him the solution. He would think about all the possibilities for the proofs. He couldn't figure it out. There were millions of them. The dream would come up and say, this is it. I think we can do that. Well, I think we have the same capacity in everyday life. This very pair of dreams itself is a proof of the precision of my instrument, of my mathematical instrument. By comparing this unconventional dory, my vehicle, that moves nimbly between immense currents of the ocean, coming tremendous distances to reach me every night, and this Cadillac, by contrast, with 3 flat tires that can take us nowhere. Few but me seem to deem it worth their while to take care of their boat. We never had or never will have a Cadillac. It refers to a very particular Cadillac in which our tennis team in high school was driven to matches in neighboring towns. The driver was the mother of our #1 player. Her grand Cadillac now looks far gone, as Logs Homer would say. I would say it means that conventional psychiatry is going to stay about the same in its ponderous apparatus that is entirely static with only one tire that works. And that is the one tire that moves, connects known things to other known things, depressants to antidepressants. It is but one tire that operates. Conventional business is not my business. Detroit is theirs, and my business is not Detroit. Thank you.